Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Travis Hurley, and I came back to Ozark in 2012 to work in the development department, which is the fundraising arm of the school, and I teach part-time as well, and this is after 20 years in ministry. I first came here in 1992, so that was 22 years ago when I was a freshman, living on Boatman 3rd. B3's announced? Right, yeah, good stuff there. Listen, I came back to work in development. That's the job that I was hired for. But there was a passion that I have that was cultivated in my ministry out in the DC area for about 10 years. That was really the tipping point for why I came back. It wasn't just to work in development and to teach part-time, but also because the college had decided that they wanted to have a strategic initiative over the next few years here at Ozark. They have several of them. They identify about 5, and every 5 years they evaluate those and come up with their 5 for the next few years. Well, this is the one that intrigued me. They said, we want to enhance campus diversity. I thought, okay, now I'm interested in hearing more about that, because I remember when I was a student 22 years ago, this place was like 98% white, student body-wise, and then faculty and staff was entirely white. Now, I was living out in the DC area, and for about 10 years, I was the minister out there in a church that was about 70% African American. And so I began to have a great interest in and studied multi-ethnic ministry and learning how to cross cultural differences and navigate those and develop relationships that cross all the lines that society tells us we need to have just to get along, whether it's socioeconomic or cultural or political or what have you. So when they said, man, this is an initiative that we wanted to pursue here at Ozark, I thought, okay, now I want to be a part of that discussion. And as I've been back over these last couple of years having a lot of conversations with our current students of color, we've been having some great talks about how do you go about enhancing diversity on campus. And one of the suggestions that was made by current students was, you should have a conversation during the CLO with the incoming freshmen so that they know this is an initiative and so that we can talk about what that means and how this might impact you and what you can do to help us achieve this goal. So the first thing we're going to do is show you what we're not going to do tonight, and that's a clip that I asked the guys to prepare.
We believe that 99% of the problems in the workplace arise simply out of ignorance.
You know what? This is a color-free zone here. Stanley, I don't look at you as another race. And I want you to treat other people like the race that is on their forehead, okay? So everybody has a different race. Nobody knows.
Shalom. I'd like to apply for a loan.
That's nice, Dwight.
Okay, do me. Something stereotypical so I can get it really quick.
Okay, I like your food.
Outback Steakhouse. I'm Australian. Okay, do me. Something stereotypical so I can get it really quick.
Okay, I like your food.
Outback Steakhouse. I'm Australian, mate.
Pam,
No.
Pam, come on. I like your food. No, come on. Stir the pot. Stir the melting pot, Pam. Let's do it. Let's get ugly. Let's get real.
Okay. If I have to do this, based on stereotypes that are totally untrue, that I do not agree with, you would maybe not be a very good driver.
Oh, man, am I a woman?
Okay, that's what we're not going to do. We're not going to put little things on your forehead and go around and perpetuate stereotypes. In fact, part of why we want to have this conversation is because there is ignorance that continues to get perpetuated at times, even here on our campus, unintentionally often. But it's just from a lack of sensitivity and maybe from a lack of experience being in situations where either you're in the minority or you're around a lot of people of color and you've learned how to navigate some of that. So we want to kind of walk through that and talk through that tonight. The first thing I want to do, though, is just kind of explain what we mean by diversity. I want to define that for you. When we talk about enhancing campus diversity, we're talking primarily about ethnic and cultural diversity, that white versus non-white ratio on our campus. We're not talking necessarily about the sexual identity politics that often have shaded the word diversity in many of our universities across the country. That's not what we're talking about here, okay? We're also not talking about so much a diversity of thought regarding whether or not Jesus is the Son of God and fully God and fully man, whether the Bible is the authoritative word of God. No, we're not looking for diversity of thought from our professors on those essentials of the faith. We're talking here simply about trying to enhance the ethnic diversity on our campus. And there's a line that Michael Scott says there at the beginning about this being a color-free zone. And when you start talking about enhancing campus diversity, you are automatically attacking what has been typically a virtue of white people, and that is to be colorblind. We think that because Dr. Martin Luther King said that we want to get to a day where people are judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character, that since we don't want to be judged by the color of our skin, we should therefore not recognize the color of someone's skin. And I want to stand up here and tell you, or sit up here and tell you tonight, the first thing is being colorblind actually is not what we're going for. That actually ends up having a negative impact. If you ignore the fact that someone has a different color of skin or a different ethnicity, a different cultural background than you, and you try to just say, hey, we're all the same, you're actually ignoring some of their cultural experiences and values and things that make them unique in terms of their worldview, and it could be something that has to do even with some injustices that they may have endured. And so when we say, hey, I think we shouldn't look at whether someone's a different color skin, actually you could actually end up being oblivious to injustice when you do that. Besides the fact that that's just unrealistic to say I don't see color. I mean, you have eyes, and you ought to be able to recognize the creativity of our God and not deny that, but rather celebrate it. And that's what we want to do. We believe that having a greater diversity of ethnicities and cultures on our campus gives us a greater expression of the intent of our creative God. In fact, Matt Proctor, our president, this last winter, he wrote an article, and the whole theme of our magazine, The Compass, was on this initiative. And he talked about reasons why we have made this a strategic initiative. He says, theologically, we believe a diverse campus better reflects God's heart. And you see that in John 17, where Jesus prayed that we would be one. You see it in Acts chapter 11 and Acts chapter 13, and you're going to learn all that in your Acts class this year, where the what I believe to be the model church of Acts had ethnic diversity in their leadership, and it was the first church that began to cross those lines from Jew into Gentile and intentionally begin to bring together a body of Christ that crossed ethnic lines. And then you see from that multi-ethnic church, the church planting that takes place throughout the rest of the book. Well, then Paul talks in Ephesians about the mystery of the gospel. And the mystery of the gospel is this Gentile inclusion, that the body of Christ is something that anyone who's made in the image of God can be a part of. And that was profoundly different from the experience of the Jewish people all throughout the Old Testament. And then you get Revelation. You go to the end of everything. And in this picture of heavenly worship, Revelation 7:9, it says every tongue, tribe, people, and nation were around the throne praising God. Now, there's an old book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, written by Stephen Covey. And he says in there, you always want to begin whatever you're doing with the end in view. Well, if Revelation 7:9 gives us a picture of the end of worship, then that's what we ought to be pursuing now. And the fact of the matter is there's still a great amount of segregation that goes on, particularly in our churches and in our Christian colleges across this country. And we're like, that cannot be what God had in mind. And yet I think we pursue that because it's easier. You all go over there and you do your thing, whether it's in music or preaching styles or whatever. We'll do our thing, and one day in heaven we'll all get together. Well, how can we pray in good conscience Jesus' prayer, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, if we're not pursuing here what we know is going to be there? And so that's that idea that this is a theological imperative of ours to pursue this campus diversity. President Proctor also said there's a missional aspect to it because we believe a diverse campus is going to better prepare evangelistic leaders. The more experience you have intermingling and interacting with folks from different backgrounds and cultural experiences, the better prepared you're going to be to go out and be Christian servant leaders in this world that is increasingly diverse. And that leads to the third one. Practically, we believe a diverse campus better recruits future students. You know, the demographics of this country are changing. And as the country becomes more and more ethnically diverse, and we want to be able to say, hey, this is a place where it doesn't matter where you're from, or what color of your skin, what's your background, what your socioeconomic level is, that this is a place where you can come and be prepared for Christian servant leadership. So how do we go about that then? How do you enhance a campus's diversity? Well, there's a number of different prongs to it, or strategies that we have to take, different tacks. One is to make a concerted effort toward diversifying our leadership. Right now, when you get the directory, you're going to notice there's not a lot of diversity in your faculty and in your staff. We want to work on that. And so one of the ways we're doing that is bringing in some adjunct professors. Part of the challenge is convincing someone to move to Joplin, Missouri. This is not like the cultural epicenter of the world, and people aren't dying to move here. I don't know if you realize that or not. Maybe you are. How many of you just couldn't wait to move to Joplin? How many of you, for you, it's the big city compared to where you came from? Yeah, that's just you poor people. All right. Moving from D.C. back here was a little rough. In fact, I had some friends out there who said, why in the world would you want to move to Joplin? And my associate minister said, isn't that just cow land? And I was a little offended by that until I drove out here and saw quite a few cows on the way. And then it was like, well, maybe a little, right? So we may not be able to convince folks from the East Coast, West Coast, from some of our major cities to move in, but we can certainly bring them in for a weekend on occasion, maybe do a winter session. In fact, this fall, Jinsey Harton is coming in. He's an African-American minister from Chicago, and he's teaching a class. He's got his Master of Divinity from Pepperdine. He's going to teach on wisdom, literature, and contemporary culture. So I'm excited he's coming in. In the spring, Byron Davis is coming, African-American leader from Los Angeles area. He's going to teach on leveraging social media and ministry. And we're constantly looking for ways to do that. In addition to bringing professors in, we also Skype them in. I teach some classes where I'm constantly trying to Skype guys in. This last January, I see some guys nodding who were in the class. We Skyped in ministers from Harlem, and from Philadelphia and from Chicago and from LA, just to talk about what it means to be a minister in a multi-ethnic context for that class. So that's one way we can do that. Another area is student recruitment. And so we have this Mosaic Leadership Scholarship that just got unveiled this last year, where it's the first scholarship that Ozark offers, where part of the requirements is that you be a person of color. And there's still academic requirements. There's still essays that have to be written. You have to fill out that whole application process, have a desire for Christian servant leadership. But we're also saying, hey, we know this is an area of deficiency on our campus. And so this is what scholarships are for. You go out and you try to attract the type of student that you're missing. And since we lack diversity on campus, that's one of the ways that we're trying to correct it. Another area would be in our course offerings. So we're trying to offer some classes to prepare you better. Multi-ethnic ministry class, Christian community development, urban ministry settings. The African American Congress on Discipleship is a conference that happens every year or two in different places around the country, and we try to take students to that. The Multi-Ethnic Leadership Conference. In addition to courses, though, we're encouraging our professors to consider textbooks, required texts that are from non-white perspectives. It's very easy to get caught up in just reading the same people or working within the same circle of influence. And sometimes you just have to figure out ways to break out of that. Not that you sacrifice quality in that regard. You're just bringing in a different perspective from someone who has the same high quality of scholarship. And then the fourth area is culture on campus. Cultivating a campus culture that is going to be attractive to students of any ethnicity. And this is where you come in. We've already begun doing some training with the faculty, the executive team, the trustees. We have some more coming. Dr. Alvin Sanders will be here in the end of October. I think he's going to preach in chapel and do faculty devotions and just kind of maybe guest lecture in some classes. But he's mainly coming in to spend an afternoon with our faculty and staff talking about this issue. And I share that with you just to let you know that this is something the college is committed to. And we're not just giving lip service to it, we're putting our money where our mouth is. And we're bringing people in, we're offering scholarships. Last semester we had a campus-wide survey of the students and the faculty and the staff just to get their views and their understandings. When you hear this initiative, what do you think? And then we've been having some what we call mosaic breakfasts, where students of color are encouraged to get together with other students who are in the minority on this campus just to talk about what it's like to encourage each other and just to talk about ways we can improve the culture. Where you come in is I want to talk now and spend the majority of the rest of our time really talking about how you cultivate a culture that's more than just letting people know that they're welcome guests on our campus. Because that's really been the attitude. I don't think anybody from the last 70 plus years here at the school would say to you, hey, we don't want certain kinds of people here. You're not going to hear that. Everybody has the attitude, well, we would love to see more diversity. We want people to feel welcomed here. I want us to get beyond that attitude and say, I don't want you just to feel like a welcomed guest at Ozark. I want you to feel like Ozark is your home. And there's a real difference there. Just think about it with me. Let's just use that metaphor. Have you ever been a guest in someone else's house? It's different than when you are in your home, isn't it? When you're a guest, you only go into the rooms that you have been welcomed into. You know, if you come over and hang out at our house, and we invite students over regularly, we are not going to take you up and let you hang out in our bathroom, in our master bedroom area. That's kind of just, you know, that's our space. But you can hang out in the living room, and there is a bathroom we do let you use, right, Matthew? You know, and you can go to the kitchen. But the other thing too is when you're a guest, if I say as the homeowner, okay, I'm ready to go to bed, you need to leave. Matthew stays. No, you don't. You have to leave, man. I kick you out, and you got to go. And if I decide, okay, these are the rules we're going to do tonight, you can either get with that or you can leave, right? Because I'm the master of the house. I'm the king of the castle. It's my place. Now, if it's your home, then you can go wherever, do whatever, make yourself at home, see what's in the fridge, go upstairs. You know, my kids leave their laundry everywhere. They leave dirty dishes in their room. It's a little gross. You know, they sit in my chair. They change the channels. I don't get to see the game I want to watch, whatever. It's because it's their house too. And so there's just a different feel. I can control the room that you visit in when I'm the owner. I can tell you when to leave. When you're the guest, you can only become comfortable when you find areas of familiarity or similarity, things we have in common. And so what happens then, the guest who comes into a house, especially for the first time, you might be a little nervous, a little on edge until you find, you like the same team I like. Okay, we can talk about that. You watch movies. You read books. What books do you like? I like that book too. You start to find areas of commonality, and then you focus on those. When a student of color comes onto a campus that is predominantly white, it can be nerve-wracking because there's a sense of, okay, I need to find where I fit in to what they are doing. And suddenly you begin having to give up or at least set aside things that are valuable or important to you because this is not your place. And right now, the impression I get from the current students of color that are on our campus is that's generally the feel. But I don't want you just to hear that from me. I've asked a couple of students to come tonight, and I'm just going to ask them a couple questions and invite them to answer them in front of you. These are two of our Hispanic students here on campus. I'm going to ask Melanie Gonzalez if you'll come up. Melanie's a sophomore, and she's in the co-op program, and she's from the Dallas area. And then Gabe Pacheco is going to come up. Gabe is a senior, also from the Dallas area. He's the youth minister over in Miami at the Christian church there. So you guys sit in the seats there. I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and then you guys can just kind of talk a little bit about what it's like to be a student of color at Ozark, all right? The first question is, what's it like being a student of color on a nearly all-white campus?
Okay. I'll go first. When I first showed up here on campus, my youth minister from home had gone here. All of our pastors and stuff had gone here. And I knew if I wanted to be, as good as they were or have the heart for God that they do, I want to come to this school. I want to come to a great place like that. And with that, first, my honest opinion was, there aren't a lot of people that look like me, but right now that doesn't matter. I want to go because I'm going to get the best education I can to reach the people for God. That changed once I got here. It was a lot more nerve-wracking than I originally thought to come in into the dorms, into classes, and to look around and be, I'm different. I'm completely different from everybody else that's in this room right now. And if you've ever been in a situation like that, you all know that type of self-conscious, you're thinking of, what if I don't fit in? What if the things that I like have nothing to do with the things that you like? And it's been different, and I'm not saying that my time at Ozark's been awful. I would have gone home a long time ago, but I absolutely love this school. And being a minority here has made it tough at different times, but I wouldn't regret coming here at all. So.
Well, to start off, Gabe and I were from the same home church, and so we grew up in a youth group where there's people from every single ethnic group, and nothing's weird about that, at least to us, So when I first got here, I had the same idea as Gabe. We grew up with our pastoral staff all being from Ozark and all graduated from here, so I've been pumped to come here since I was like 13 or 14 years old. This is where I've always wanted to go. But the idea of me being called a minority never really was a thing until I got here. I never was looked at as, oh, she's the Mexican chick or whatever, That wasn't ever a thing. Like, I went to a school where there was lots of people from all over the world, and that's the kind of town that I grew up in. So it was kind of tough to adjust in a lot of ways. I mean, I lived on a great floor. I loved everyone that I lived with. It wasn't like I didn't have any friends. I had lots of friends. It just, when it came down to a lot of the things that we would have in common with people from back home, it was just not happening here. So it's kind of hard to fit in at first, but I mean, Ozark is a great school, and I've always loved, just like Gabe said, I would have left a long time ago if it wasn't. So.
Okay. What sort of things make you feel like a guest on campus versus this feeling like your school?
Okay. I think, so my parents are both from Monterrey, Mexico, which is big, huge city in Mexico. I think the biggest thing for me was I know this is going to sound weird, but the things that I kept in my fridge, like I really love lime and like chili powder and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's kind of one thing that, I hung out with every girl on my floor. And it just, whenever I did different things and they pointed it out, that's when I really felt like a guest. Like, oh, why are you eating that? Like, what is that? And it wasn't like they were being rude, but it was just the first time that I realized this is not what everyone eats. This is not what everyone watches or whatever, that kind of thing. So that's one thing that I felt like really made me a guest.
For me, the most recent time was when we had first started talking about the scholarship that we're going to be having here at the school. I was really excited about it because I want more people to come here, and not just from one race, from whatever race that you are. I want you to be here because we're supposed to look like the kingdom of heaven. And with that, the day that happened, Ozark was kind of a different place if you're a minority student. There was a lot of talking, and there's a lot of making fun of the scholarship, and why are we trying to do this? Why is this a concern of ours right now? And even in the dorm, which was the biggest concern, went down to just go get water. It wasn't no big deal. And we were all outside, me, my younger brother, and one of our friends who is African American. We were outside, we were talking about how excited we were. And I went down the hall to go get water, and a few of the white students that were there were making fun of it. Why do we need this type of thing here? Why do we need more races to come here? Ozark's fine the way it is. Why are we going to change it? And they were laughing and mocking it, and that was definitely something where, and they were all students that were younger than me. I was one of the upperclassmen on the floor, and even at that point, I didn't feel welcomed in my own hallway. We ended up going back to my room. We kind of locked ourselves in there because we felt more like a guest than at home. So that was one of the things that really stuck out to me and got my attention as to, this is something that we want to share with you guys, to be able to say, those are the types of things that we want to stay away from, as far as making somebody feel as not a guest, but somebody who feels at home.
Okay. I'm going to throw this one in here. typically it's been found that when you're in the majority, you don't even realize some of the things about your cultural experience that are unique to you. So like there's a white identity or a cultural distinction, but if you've always grown up in that, you don't even know it. So what are some things from your own culture that you had to give up as you came to Ozark and found this is how things are done here? One example someone mentioned was chapel worship. Could you talk about that? Or
Yeah. Growing up, as far as where we have come from, we're from the Dallas area, very diverse. And so it was a normal thing for on a Sunday morning to have worship sung in a different language. It was normal to have not just more than just a guitar and a piano and drums up there. We had different kinds of instruments from everywhere. And coming here, honestly, guys, chapel is one of my favorite parts of Ozark. I'm not dogging that at all, but coming here and not having that at least once in the 2 to 3 years, not seeing that at least once was kind of, disheartening in knowing that the music that speaks differently to me in my heart, and we're worshiping God with it. To not have that here, it was something different, and to know, like, almost to the point where it's like, maybe that's not a concern of everyone that's around me, and so that was different.
I think one thing that stood out to me once I was, some people say like whitewashed or whatever when I got here. That's just something that I've always identified with as whitewashed, I guess.
explain that.
Whitewashed? Well, okay, so obviously I don't think I look 100% Mexican. A lot of people think that too. And so a lot of people say, oh no, you're not Mexican, you're white. And I'm like, no, I'm really Mexican. Like both my parents are Mexican. I'm fluent in Spanish. Like I lived in Mexico for summers. And so I'm not white. And everyone's like, oh, but you're whitewashed. And I'm like, no, I'm not. So I guess it's the idea of you've lived somewhere so long, so now you've become that, is what whitewashed is. But I think one thing that I missed is hearing, we have a lot of preachers come from all over the world at Crossroads, is where we go to church or whatever. We have people from Africa that come to speak, and people from I think we had one Chinese man that came, and we've had Mexican speakers that basically anywhere that our church supports their ministry in whatever part of the world they're from, that's kind of where we have. And I noticed that when we got to Ozark, I think it was International Focus Week, that was the only time that we had someone that wasn't white preaching on stage.
Okay. So just maybe there's certain things that you get used to, and then you come into a setting that's predominantly white, and you're like, okay, some of the music's different. I don't see as much diversity from the stage as I'm used to. And then over time, you start to wonder, maybe no one cares about my experience, right? Okay. Melanie, would you invite any of your friends to go to the school?
Well, that was a big thing that I love about my church back home, is that I can invite anyone from any, I can invite someone that is Asian. I can invite someone that is not just African American, but African. I can invite someone that doesn't speak any English, and I feel like they would feel comfortable at my church. I don't think that they would think, wow, I don't fit in anywhere. Like, wow, nobody else looks like me. And so my heart yearns for Ozark to be a place where that is possible, where people from international students from all over the world can come and just say, this is cool, like this is what I want to help reach people for God, and I don't feel weird doing it here. Good. I don't feel like this is not somewhere I belong. Okay.
And then what can these students be doing, do you think, to help foster a culture where anyone can feel at home? Or not do.
There's a lot that you can do. One of the biggest things, as far as just looking at this freshman class, I was talking to Travis, there is already a lot more diversity that we have seen before. And so with that, with the new students that are here and the ones that are already here that are of color, to not treat them as oh, I hate to say this, you're the token black guy, you're the token Mexican girl. I want to be friends with you because, you're loud or something, and I want to be, I'll feed that stereotype, and I'll be loud with you, and that's how I'm going to be your friend. But that could be totally opposite from what the real personality is and the way that they truly act. So one thing that you can do is honestly get to know them, get to know the things that they enjoy, the things that they care about. And when you do that, you start to learn about them as a person and their heart for God. And you learn things like cultural things that, Melanie likes lime, and, I'll listen to music in Spanish, I'm not fluent in Spanish, but I love listening to it. And so just things like that. You learn a lot more about somebody, and the more that you can learn and care for the people that are in the dorm or that you have classes with, the bigger the impact you're going to make in their lives, and the more that we're going to see this place start to change.
Melanie?
I think for a great thing for this class to have in mind is to have more of an understanding point of view from where not everyone here is from Joplin or Kansas or Oklahoma. We're not all from the Forest State kind of thing. So are you from one of those? Yeah, there you go. There's one, I guess. I mean, there's tons. But a lot of the students are from places that aren't anywhere near here. And so we all come from different parts of the United States or the world, and we all come from different family backgrounds and, like Travis said, social, economical backgrounds, and maybe our parents are even not Christians and stuff like that. So really seeing past the token friend, really just, like Gabe said, getting to know them. And I mean, if you see someone sitting by themselves, we all reach out to that one person and sit with them, right? But the point of the matter is that, I mean, we shouldn't have to I guess, how to say this, we shouldn't have to bubble people by what they look like or what their English. I mean, you're going to meet people that have like really strong foreign accents that go to Ozark. And so just getting to know them and wanting to be their friend and wanting to make a real relationship with them, not just making them your token friend, I think is a really great start to what Ozark is trying to do here.
Okay. Anything else you two wanted to say before I go back up there?
Just one more thing. Me and Melanie both talked about this before coming up here. We do not want this to seem like we're just ranting to you guys about all the things that we felt or anything like that. We both have been blessed by this school. We both have been blessed by the people that have been here and God working through their lives to touch our hearts for us to care. So don't think that any person of color that you come around that we're just going to have a list of things. Hey, don't do this. Hey, don't do that. That's not what we're going to do. The one thing that I do want to say, one of the things that people of color tend to do is make fun of themselves so that they feel accepted by other people who aren't. And so with that, we ask you, if they start to do that, don't feed into it. Don't, it might be funny of what they said, but don't even let them get away with, let me poke fun at my own self. Because even then, they're going backwards on what we're trying to do. And that is a big thing. So if you could do that, go talk to your RA, say, hey, they said this, and yes, I know that, they're Asian, they're black. It should be fine for them to say that. We're being counterproductive of what we're trying to do. And so if you guys can help stop that, then we're going to make a lot of headway, and this campus is going to change for the better. And so don't think that we're just ranting. Get to know us. We're a lot of fun. And we're going to love all you. So.
All right. Melanie, anything else? That's it? All right. I'm going to thank them. Thank you. Here's some other things that we have heard from students of color in the past few years. I get tired of being the black guy. That's what someone told me. Stereotypes are joked about. It gets frustrating. And it's something I never experienced in high school, but I experienced it here, a place I never thought I would have to worry about that. When I hear something like that, I go, okay, that's not good. The culture on a Christian campus ought to be one where stereotypes aren't perpetuated, and this person didn't experience them until they got here. Joking statements that highlight differences are common around here, and they get tiresome. Once, we've had the N-word thrown out a couple times in a joking manner. One time in a manner that student wasn't sure what was going on there, and actually was a little concerned that their life might be in danger. They thought it was someone passing through the campus, and then found out actually it was someone on campus. And so there's just that kind of stuff shouldn't happen at a place like this. And so I don't know where you come from or what you're accustomed to, but we just want you to be aware of this coming in, that when you have an initiative and you're really striving to do something that goes against maybe what you thought was okay, that whole being colorblind deal, that you're going to run into some rocky patches of water at times, and we just want to navigate those together with an extra measure of grace. There's a lot of cynicism at times that gets expressed when you talk about the diversity initiative. You get some eye rolling from some of the upperclassmen who maybe, for the first 2 or 3 years of their time here, this wasn't even brought up, and now they're hearing about it and thinking, why is this all of a sudden on the radar? And this is just a fad, and the college is just jumping on a bandwagon, and they'll move on to something else. And when you get that attitude as a freshman, I want you to don't take that in. Don't internalize that. Don't buy into that. Say, no, this is theologically right, and missionally it's going to help me to be a better minister going forward. Some other students said, when you're the minority, everyone's fast to meet and greet you at the beginning, especially if they come from an area where they haven't had a lot of ethnic diversity. I want to be that guy's friend or that girl's friend, but then it dissipates kind of fast. You feel like a novelty at first because everyone wants that friend that's different, and then they start making jokes like they know you. And that's kind of what Gabe was referring to, is you hear maybe an African-American student or a Hispanic student make a joke about themselves, and then suddenly it's like, oh, that's fair game. I'm going to joke that way too. Don't do that. And, don't even, give ear to that when they do it. This is really all comes down to a basic fundamental Christian principle, which is affirm the dignity of every person you meet. Everybody is made in the image of God. Every single one of us. And we're all part of one race. It's the human race. And so anytime someone is tearing down themselves or some other person or group, don't stand for that. Don't go along with that. Don't laugh at that, because that goes against the fundamental principle, the call that we have to affirm the dignity in people. Some students of color said, I wish I had more mentors of color to look up to and to learn from. And I just don't have that on this campus. And so I will tell you, if you're here and you're a student of color yourself and you're looking for some mentors that are Hispanic or African American, what have you, right now we don't have a lot of that we can offer directly on campus, but we can put you in touch with some ministers across the country that perhaps you can develop a relationship with through email or Skype or what have you. And there are some ministers in town that I can put you in touch with from some of our African American churches and Hispanic churches, for sure, that I know of, that might be able to offer that to you. And I would say that not just for students of color, but for you white students as well. If all you do to prepare for ministry is learn from more other white people, you're not going to be as prepared as you should be for the demographically changing world that you're heading back out into in 4 or 5 years. So you need to have some mentors, whether it's through authors or through relationships from ministers in town, or however you can go about finding them, people that are different ethnically and culturally from you that you can learn from. That's highly valuable, even if it's during your internship times or what have you during the summer, okay? I think we talked enough about the dumb jokes. I'm going to tell you one last story from my own experience as a student. In 1992, when I got here, there were, I think, 3 African-American students on campus. And one of them lived on Boatman 2nd. I lived on Boatman 3rd. And growing up, there was only one African-American kid in my entire school. I had a 300-member freshman class in high school, and there was only one black kid in it. And so I wasn't used to having someone live a floor below me from a different ethnicity. But I loved it. I wanted to know him better. And so I began to do the loud, angry black man impression anytime he came up onto our floor, thinking I'm connecting with him. And I would start yelling at him and saying, what are you doing? This is Boatman 3rd. We don't allow your kind up here. And I was referring to Boatman 2nd, guys. That was the joke about it, the funniness that I thought I was communicating. And he would laugh and get loud back and tell me that our kind aren't welcome on Boatman Second. And we would have this running joke. And every few days, there would be some kind of interaction we'd have. I'd hear his voice, and I'd peek down the hall and start yelling at him. He'd yell back. We would laugh and go on. And I thought, we've got a bond. We're friends. And I found out later, like 3 or 4 years later, that not only was I wasn't the only one trying to develop a friendship with him that way, but his roommate said, you know, he would act that way out on the floor, but no one saw him when he came back into the room. And he would get real quiet and introspective. And he says, I could tell it bothered him. And I had no idea. And so that is just to tell you that sometimes you think, no, it's cool, it's fine. I mean, you know, we're just having fun. When it may, in fact, not be cool at all. And you just don't know it because you really haven't gotten to know them. And so that comes down to what you can do, and that is develop genuine relationships. You know, seek first to understand people around you. And if you want to talk about issues and differences, do it in an honest way that affirms dignity and isn't a joking matter. And understand, too, that it takes time. You don't just get to know people overnight. It doesn't matter who it is. You've already had some conversations about building relationships. I want to encourage you to build them across cultural lines. Get to know people around you that are from different places. And make that part of your goals while you're here on campus, is to develop some of those connections that maybe you wouldn't otherwise have. The only other thing I would say to you is, when you're in the majority, and on this campus, if you're white, you're in the majority, you have the luxury of deciding whether you're going to care about anything I've talked about tonight or not. You can walk out of here, roll your eyes, go, that was dumb. That was a bunch of political correctness. You know, it's just ridiculous mumbo jumbo, and I don't even care about any of this. This is stupid. You can have that attitude. And if you're in the majority, you have the luxury of carrying that forward, and you can be here for the next 5 years with that attitude and not really be impacted. But if you're a student of color, you're in the minority, you don't have that luxury. These are real issues that have to be navigated when you're here. And if we're going to be genuine followers of Christ and serve the way he served, we have got to learn not just to sympathize with, but empathize with the experiences of the students around us. And so if you know these are challenges for people around you, then you ought to make it part of your calling to be an advocate for them. So I would love to hear, you know, our white students saying, you know, we need some more diverse worship in chapel. We need more diverse speakers. We need more diverse faculty. I would love to hear our white students saying that more, rather than the students of color saying it. You know, that's one way you can help. The other thing I'd tell you is we're going to break you up now into your life groups, and you're going to take a privilege survey. And the privilege survey is designed to help you see that we all come from different backgrounds, different experiences, different challenges and things that we've gone through, some advantages that some of us have had that others haven't. And it's not strictly based on ethnicity at all. I've seen students take this and their scores run the gamut. And I've seen students of color take this and their scores run the gamut. It doesn't matter so much about ethnicity as it is simply a tool to help you illustrate that we don't all come from the same place. That this idea of equal opportunity isn't really, it's more of a myth in America than an actuality. We want to get to that point, but we don't all have the same opportunities before us, because a lot of success is based not so much on how smart you are or how gifted you are, but also who you know and what kind of resources have been afforded you growing up. So this survey helps you to kind of identify where you are, and helps you to remind you, as you answer some of those questions you're going to see on there, you're going to realize, wow, that's a weird question. Well, for someone else, that might not be a strange question at all. So you're going to take that, you're going to figure out your score, pay attention to the directions on it so you score yourself right on that. There'll be a time to discuss it with your life group. After you're done with that, you don't need to turn the survey in. We don't need to see it. You can share the results if you want within your life group. But then after we're all done with that time of discussion, you are free to go. I think maybe your life group leaders may have some plans to do some fun stuff with you after you're done here. But that's going to be the end for tonight. When we do break into our life groups, those of you who are life group refugees, if you've been hanging out with Kevin or with some of the other leaders, you come on up here to the front and I will lead your discussion during that privilege survey talk. And then one last thing I would say is if you're a student of color, pay attention in the days ahead, you'll get an email in all likelihood or an invitation from another student. We'll invite you to that Mosaic breakfast where we just have our students of color get to know each other and encourage each other just as a way of saying, hey, it can be different. And there may be some things that you could tell us that will help us in leadership to continue to create a culture on campus where you feel more like this is your home. I'm tempted to open up for questions, but I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm just going to let you have your conversations in your life groups instead. Let me pray for you, and I appreciate your attentiveness tonight. Father God, we thank you for the chance just to talk about some of these issues. Lord, I thank you for the foresight of the leadership of this college and their desire to see a campus that's more diverse, and the value in that, not only in pleasing you and reflecting your heart, but also better preparing us for the world that we're going out into. Father, I pray for the students who are here now, and as maybe this is the first kind of discussion like this that they've really been a part of, or maybe it's an issue that makes them uncomfortable. I don't know where we're at in this room, but I pray, Father, that we would take to heart the call to affirm the dignity of people around us and to realize that this is a serious issue and not something to make light of and to poke fun at, and help us to be advocates for a diverse campus. That's my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.